Well, it is now 12 p.m., so I will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to our panel discussion, Are You Livin the Dream? Brought to you by the Office of Alumni Relations. I'm Rachel Anderson. I'm a graduate of the S.J. Quinney College of Law, and I'm a chair of the U Alumni Board of Governors Committee for Networking and Careers. I will be facilitating and moderating our conversation today. We welcome questions from the panel, or for the panel, which you can submit in the YouTube chat. And we will also be sending up a follow-up email after this event with a link to this recording and including any of the supporting materials that you will see and hear referenced today. So we've all observed the dramatically evolving employment landscape over the last few years, and you may now have options that you couldn't consider previously as you contemplate your career goals. I'm delighted to introduce you to our three expert panelists who will share their insight and encouragement to assess your options and to clarify how you want to invest for a successful and meaningful career. We will be speaking to each of our presenters separately, and I'm going to start first with Natalie Gauchner. Natalie is a Utah alumna who currently serves as an associate dean in the David Eccles School of Business, also as the director of the Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute, and as a chief economist for the Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce. Previously, Natalie has served as an advisor to three Utah governors, Norm Bangerter, Mike Leavitt, and Olene Walker. She was also a political appointee in the George W. Bush administration, serving as an associate administrator at the EPA and counselor to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Natalie, we're very fortunate to have you here today, especially as you are co-chairing the transition team for our new university president, Taylor Randall. So I know that you're very busy, so we really appreciate you being here today. Thanks for sharing your valuable insight on employment trends and the industries currently seeking college grads and mid-career professionals. Natalie, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Great to be with everybody. Happy Wednesday, and it's really an honor to share some insights with you about the Utah economy. It's really a great time to be sharing insights because it's a very dynamic economy. There's a lot of actually positive news in the economy. And I'm just very hopeful in our forecast and the things that we see ahead. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here's what I'm hoping to, just the real high takeaway points for you to think about. It's very clear that our economic recovery has commenced. Now, we've got all sorts of uncertainty and issues because of the Delta variant and, the ongoing management of this pandemic. But the data is clear that the recovery has commenced. Our state is among the top performers in the country, if not in the top spot in the top three, depending on the measure. There are certainly growing pains, I like to call them, some challenges as we pull out of this difficult time. But really, it's a time of opportunity, and it's because there's a lot of moving pieces. And as these pieces are moving around, there's opportunities, and I think it's a really hopeful time. So a positive outlook. We're not out of the woods yet, but let's keep an eye on the data, be vigilant, and I think some good things will happen. This is a way for you to think about what's happened in the economy. So that red line is our state, Utah. Of course, I'm using red for a reason. The gray is the US, so we're just comparing to our national statistics. This is job growth, year over job growth. And you can see that for the better part of the last decade, Utah has performed better than the nation. And not just better, but about 2 times the magnitude. The nation job growth sits, at about 1.5%, give or take. Utah's, 3 to 3.5. So we typically are growing at about twice the national average. And then COVID hits and all this crazy, you hear the V-shaped recovery kind of comments, and you can very much see that, right? The pandemic hits, the bottom falls out. There's a lot of turbulence, very hard adjustments, but Utah popped very quickly and earlier than the nation, and then has proceeded to a much higher level than the nation. And in this on a year over basis, so this would be July of 2020 to July of 2021, there's 6.7% more jobs. If I look at it for all 50 states, just to kind of help you see why I say this is a very hopeful time, a prosperous time in Utah, just look at the different states here. Look at those numbers. You see a lot of contraction, a lot of negative numbers. In fact, I believe there's only 4 states there that show positive numbers. So let me tell you what this is. This is looking at what were jobs in July 2019 and what are they today? And in between, there's this, pandemic recession. But we're doing a 2-year thing because if we look from here to here, that's not really real life. It's more, on a more of a steady state. Where were we in 2019? Where are we today? And when we do that, the nation has contracted by minus 2.8%. So the national job picture is still lower today than it was 2 years ago. In Utah, it's 4.2% higher. And you really see how different we are, the different economic reality that we face. It feels, and in fact, is different here in Utah. If we look at it by industry, so I mentioned we're growing at 4.2%, a 2-year percent change basis. This natural resources and mining, this is the energy sector. So it's got a lot of challenges as our nation and our world really converts more to renewables, less oil and gas, less coal. But put that aside for just a minute and look at these growth rates. The construction sector, for manufacturing to be growing by 6.5%, impressive number. Trade, transportation, utilities, 6.5%. Information we have down 2%. This is a little bit of a data nuance. We have a motion picture, a filming industry that was at a peak in 2019, and it's had some contraction since, and it's here. So I see that as a temporary drop. You can see financial services, professional and business services. This is really healthcare here. When it says education, that's private education, but most of education in our state's public. It shows up in here in government. So this is really the healthcare sector. Then you can see our tourism sector still struggling, but I'm telling you, a minus 2.3% contraction. This has been double digits for months, and it just gets better every single month. So that's what we look like. If this is the same data right here, but this is, instead of percent change, this is actual jobs. So we've added 65,000 jobs in the last 2 years. If you look at the tech sector, the service sector, you can see 20,000, 8,000, 5,000. You can just see the types of opportunities that are there. The other thing that I think is really interesting, particularly on this webinar, is our unemployment rate. And you see something really similar here, right? This time, though, the red line is below the gray line because you want a low unemployment rate. Utah's red, US gray. You can see the pandemic hits, we skyrocket from a 2.2% unemployment, a record low in our state's history, up to 10%, but stayed there very shortly and have this very nice return to what is now 2.6% unemployment. I would say that puts us very close to full employment in Utah. And so it's a very tight labor market. There's a lot of job growth and very low unemployment, which means if you're looking for work, there's a lot of options. And that's actually very positive. Just to give you that same look, this is how our unemployment rate looks compared to other states. July 2021 number, nation at 5.4%, Utah, half that at 2.6%, second lowest in the nation. And then just because we are statewide and everything, I thought it would be helpful to just look for a minute at unemployment rates county by county. And a really clear picture emerges here where you see Eastern Utah, which is where a lot of our energy assets are. Coal, this is coal country, and Emory and Grand, Duchesne and Uinta are rich in oil and gas, natural gas. Carbon County, that's where coal is. So that's where the high unemployment rates are. But if you look along sort of the I-15 corridor, the urban corridor, very low unemployment rates. Cache County at 1.7%, lowest in the state. And you can see Salt Lake County, where the University of Utah is located, 2.6%. We're the largest county by far. We tend to just be what the state rate is what you find often in Salt Lake County. But you see some variation, but overall some really low rates. So if I come back to these key points, I think the setting that I want to set for the other presenters and then for question and answers is this is a time to be hopeful. This is a time to plant seeds and pursue opportunities. This is a time to not be discouraged, but rather to stay positive, see the good in each opportunity, each situation. And with the kinds of tailwinds that we're seeing in the economy, there's a high likelihood that some very gainful, positive employment options are available. So with that as a setting, I know I haven't used quite all of my time, but maybe that gives us some backup time for questions and whatnot. And I come back to you, Rachel.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Natalie. I loved hearing about the trends and the optimism there. That's good. We need a little optimism in our lives right now. So now I would like to introduce Dr. Ann Innes, Utah alumna and Director of Professional Education at the U's Continuing Education Department. From the Professional Education website, it says, adaptability is now essential. Adaptability means updating skills, enhancing capabilities, anticipating what comes next, and always being prepared. And we are so glad to have you with us and with our fellow alumni to talk about what it means to become future ready and how we can potentially take advantage of alumni discounts in some instances on some of our professional education courses. And I will now hand it over to you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Natalie, for that great outlook at where we are in our state right now and what trends we're seeing, what kind of forecast we have ahead of us. So I want to talk to you today about what do you do, as Natalie shared with us. There are a lot of great opportunities, and this is a really great time to be hopeful in your career. So many folks are thinking about it's time to pivot, or I want to take the next step in a career I am already involved in. And what do you do is what I'd like to talk to you today about is what do you do if you're not quite sure how your resume or your CV fits into those fields? What do you do if you're looking for a pivot? What do you do if you're looking for a little bit of an advancement and you're just not quite sure how to position yourself for that next step? So I want to talk to you today about what it means to become what we call at professional education future ready, and what it means to be prepared for today's workforce. Because as we know, over the last 2 years, the way we work, the way we do business, all the industries we are involved in have changed. And what we are as employers, what we do as employees has changed. So one of the key pieces you want to remember as you're thinking about how do I put that resume together, how do I evaluate my career options, is that you want to remember that a key piece right now is adaptability. Being adaptable to the changing workforce, being adaptable to changing demands, being adaptable to changing industries is critical for positioning yourself towards that career or that promotion that you're interested in. Adaptability comes in a number of ways. First of all, you want to think about updating those skills. If it's been 2 years, 4 years, 10 years, or even 6 months since you finished your degree, taking a survey of your industry or the field in which you'd like to work and making sure that you are at the peak of currency. Are you doing and following the current trends? Is it worthwhile to take a short-term class to update a piece of something you may have learned a few years ago to make sure that you are current on the skills you already have? A second piece of being adaptable is adding skills to your skill set. Taking a look around at what you do, what skills you already have, and thinking about your experience, thinking about your resume even as a set of puzzle pieces. How can I add a new skill, whether that is in the form of a short-term class or a micro-credential or a certificate? How can I add a set of skills that complement the skills and training I already have, or help me pivot in a new direction to show my diversity, to show my ability to move around, to flex, and to work within a changing field. A third key concept of adaptability is anticipating what comes next. And this often comes from taking a step back, taking a survey of your field that you're currently working in or the field in which you'd like to pivot and enter, and taking a look at the landscape, reading through the relevant professional publications. What are we on the edge of? What are we on the cusp of? And how can I learn enough about that? How can I add that to my skill set or be relevant and able to speak the language of what is coming next in my field? And then the last piece of adaptability that you want to keep in mind is to be continuously ready for the evolution of the workplace. If you think about what your life was like 2 years ago professionally, think about what your life is like now professionally. You may be working from home. You may be working hybridly from home and hybridly from your office. You may be working in a shared workspace. What business, what industry, what professionalism looks like is continuously evolving. And we want to be continuously evolving in order to meet those needs. I want to take a couple of minutes and talk to you about two particular students who experienced professional education courses here at the University of Utah through continuing ed. And they had very different pathways, and they really underscore particularly what this notion of being adaptable and future ready looks like. The first student I would love to share with you today is Evelyn. And as you can tell from these photographs, Evelyn is full of joy and full of focus on the career that she is entering. Evelyn recently completed the Project Management Fundamentals program, and she did so in order to add to her skill set. Evelyn's a fourth-year PhD student here at the University of Utah. And as she was getting ready to do trials for her dissertation study, she found herself unsure of the management of her project. She had everything in line she needed to do, but she noted that a place where her skill set could boost was managing the day-to-day aspects, the timelines of the project. So Evelyn sought out project management education. She did it to support her skill set. She did it to support the career that she was moving into and the project which she was currently completing. And on a read of the landscape, she started to understand that as she graduated with that PhD and went into a field of research, that those project management skills would set her apart in a way that not all other applicants would have. So she completed a short 8-week program with professional education. She met the hours that are required to sit for the professional management or for the project management professionals exam, which she's currently studying for. And we certainly hope to hear good news in a few months that she has passed that exam. So one of the things that Evelyn did was supported or added to that skill set in a way that boosted her relevancy and her preparation in the field that she was already in. The second student I want to talk to you today about is named Alex, and he took a completely different path. Alex participated in a coding bootcamp. Now, Alex had an undergraduate degree in business, and when he finished that degree, he started a small business, was working heavily in the mountain biking industry, also in a number of other biking industries. And he spent several years there, but realized about 18 months ago that this wasn't where he wanted to be. It wasn't fulfilling to him in a way that he thought it would be. And it wasn't really evolving in a way that he wanted to continue to work in that industry. So Alex did a lot of self-reflection and decided that he'd really enjoyed coding classes when he was in high school, and that he wanted to dip his toe in the water and see what it would be like to pivot careers. So he enrolled in a coding bootcamp with professional education as a way to pivot and make that initial change. One of the things that drew Alex to this bootcamp was the flexible modality. He knew that he could do it online. He knew that it was in the evenings. He knew it was taking place on weekends. And after 6 months, Alex graduated and accepted a position as an entry-level coder with the completion of this bootcamp. I'm happy to report that Alex is pleased in his new job and considering a graduate degree in computer science, as he has really found a few months of success there. And we look forward to following Alex's story as well. So all of this together tells us that when we're making a skill update, when we're doing what Evelyn and what Alex do, we want to think about targeted, specific updates to our resume, to our skill sets that will position us as future-ready individuals. And there are 4 ways that are useful in evaluating what a skill update can do for you. The first thing you want to ask yourself is this update short-term? This is something that I can enter into a 6-week or 8-week or maybe even a 1-day class. Is it easily completable, easy to access, flexible, and on my schedule? Second of all, is it a non-credit option? So a non-credit option is open to non-matriculated students. It's open to community members at large. And it is working towards either a small program of completed classes or maybe even a micro-credential or just a 1-day standalone course. Is it a non-credit offering that I can add to that resume and talk about this piece of my skill set? The third aspect of a future ready skill update is that they're generally low cost. Now, they come at different price points depending on the type of program you're investing in. If it's an 8-week project management course, the price point will be a bit lower than a 6-month coding bootcamp. But on the whole, it ought to be a fairly affordable, low cost skill update. And then the last criteria you want to look at as you're thinking about what is a valuable future ready skill update is it immediately applicable? Are you going to learn something in your class this evening that you can immediately apply tomorrow in your job? Are you going to learn something over the course of 6 or 8 weeks or 6 months that you can immediately put into practice in a career pivot or a career update? So with that said, I will do just a little bit of chat about what we offer at professional education at the University of Utah. We offer a wide variety of short-term skills programs. Healthcare programs are very popular. So if you're interested in pivoting to something like the medical assist program or a pharmacy technician, we run those in cooperation with UHealth. You can do your training with professional education and then an externship in a UHealth facility. We offer a number of technology boot camps, including coding, cybersecurity, and UX UI. And those are the 6-month type programs that I mentioned with Alex. We offer a project management program, a human resources foundations program. So if that's an industry you're interested in getting started with, it's a place to make your start. We offer classes and programs in supervisory and management. So if you're interested in moving from the position you're in into a management or a supervisory position, those would be great for you. And lastly, I want to mention instructional design, because as we know, the way we work has changed. And many of us find ourselves onboarding employees, taking new jobs and starting remotely, onboarding remotely, and providing professional development internally remotely. Those instructional design skills can really set you apart as a job candidate, because a little bit of instructional design makes those remote trainings all the more enjoyable for everyone involved. Classes at professional education are taught on a flexible and user-friendly schedule. So if you are a working professional, you are often able to work those classes into your schedule. We offer a 10% alumni discount on many of our classes. Some of those are excluded. In particular, our healthcare programs and our tech boot camps don't meet the criteria for that alumni discount. But on the others, we do offer that 10% discount. And you can learn more about that at proed.utah.edu. And then the last piece I want to mention is that website on the bottom of my slide there, learnwork.utah.edu. Professional education right now is in partnership with the Governor's Office of Economic Development, as well as the Utah State System of Higher Education. And in that partnership, we are pleased to offer a limited number of spots in both our project management program and our UX UI design bootcamp at no cost for folks who are unemployed or underemployed. So if you find yourself in that position, if you're looking for a job, you have not yet found one, or if you're underemployed and looking to step up your skill set, and you meet those criteria to be interested in project management or UX UI, I also encourage you to visit that website, learnwork.utah.edu, to learn about that application process. We have a UX UI cohort that starts in November and project management cohort starting soon and running all the way through the spring semester. And with that, Rachel, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. That was really exciting to hear about. And for those of you that maybe didn't get those websites, we will be sending out these materials again after the event. So please take a look for those. And I think there's a lot of good offerings there that's exciting. Next up, we have Melissa Ceballos. She is also a Utah alumna and a member of the U Alumni Board of Governors. Melissa is the Director of Talent and Business Acquisition at Elevated Retirement Group in Salt Lake. She's also part of our U Alumni Career Coach Referral Network and is a dedicated career mentor. Melissa is passionate about understanding her clients' needs to effectively align resources for success. Melissa, take it away.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everyone. And I just have to say, Natalie and Anne, I loved your presentations. It is just so interesting to better understand the landscape of our market and our economy and really kind of the challenges and opportunities that present themselves, as well as, Anne, all of the amazing resources that are available, at our fingertips. And I think sometimes we lose sight of how to identify the tools and resources that can help us help ourselves. And just having that information is extremely valuable. So it's just something that I strongly encourage and promote, that people seek those resources, whether it be through, Utah Department of Workforce Services or campus associations, the University of Utah Alumni Association and the Career Network, and just so many resources as graduates of the U that we have available are amazing. So I just wanted to mention that. But yes, Rachel, just to kind of talk a little bit about strategies to adapt and meet career goals in this market. As Anne kind of mentioned and spoke to, adaptability is so key right now. The reality is that we are in the era of valuing one's ability to pivot and adapt. We, are living in a fast world, and, really being able to adapt in our personal lives, our professional careers, and society as a whole is absolutely key. So thinking about, whatever you decide you want to do, whatever industry or organization you're going to work for, whether it be government or healthcare or tech, finance, business, it's ever changing. Our businesses and organizations are ever changing. So I would say adaptability is definitely a key competency. So when it comes to your career and thinking about how to position yourself and put a strategy together, it's really thinking about those transferable skills, right? And thinking about what it is that you can do to transfer those skills and position yourself to qualify for a position you are seeking, whether that's internally within your organization or looking to go external and find a new opportunity. And as Anne mentioned, if you feel like you're underemployed right now and you want to reach new heights and have more opportunity, what is it that you need to do to brush up on some skills or add some credentials to your resume, and seeking where you can get those at an affordable cost and not spending a lot of time and investment in that. To really think about right now, I think it's kind of ironic because I've been in recruiting for 20 years, all here in Utah. And I feel like our economy has always been so strong. And the trend out there is that there's a shortage of talent. Companies are just dying to find good talent and to fill open positions. But yet I feel like it's never been harder to be hired. It's never been harder to go through the job interview process and get placed. And the reality is our hiring processes have gotten more tedious. Technology has gotten more and more involved in the hiring process, some for the good and some for the bad. I mean, the reality is things are expedited. You can apply for positions at your fingertips. You can, from a company standpoint, things are streamlined, things are easily to obtain in a quick fashion. But, there's the component of artificial intelligence. Not everything is done by a human individual. Sometimes technology gets in the way of getting your true skill set or personality in front of the hiring manager. So those are all things to consider. But all in all, I think what needs to be done and strategies to consider is really going through a process of self-assessment, really understanding and identifying your unique abilities and what you're really passionate about. And I love the story about the gentleman, and that just wasn't happy and he just needed a change. And no one deserves to be in a position they don't love. And it is a big world out there. There are plenty of opportunities. And so we can't be complacent and we can't settle. So really analyzing and assessing where we're at, what our abilities are, and where our talents will be best served is important. Networking is essential. We have to use our network. We have to get, our name out there and through our friends and our family and our professional colleagues to really get them to see who we are, what our goals are, and what it is that we want in our careers. Those connections and referrals are absolutely critical. Interviewing, bottom line, is an art. We have to be able to understand how to read our interviewer. We have to know how to understand to be what they want us to be, but also being true to who we are, and being true to, what makes us happy every day. We have to balance between being persistent but not pushy. We have to balance between being confident but not cocky. Like I said, the job search process, is a process, and it is an art, and you have to be able to know how to communicate, how to adapt, and how to convey a message. So in the job search process, we just have to be excellent at every stage, from self-assessment to researching that company we're interested in, to ensuring that our skills and competencies align with the job requirements of that position, but also, that we're meshing with the culture and values of that company. There's so many resources, again, and opportunities to seek help out there. Again, whether it's identifying or finding an opportunity to work with a career coach, or finding a professional mentor, getting someone else's opinion or perspective is really going to help you navigate this process. If you just internalize everything and think about, oh, what if, and am I doing this right, and is this what I'm best suited to do? Getting that second opinion, or getting a professional opinion or an honest opinion, is actually going to be extremely valuable in kind of setting the path for how you go through this process, and what channels to utilize. So those are just some tips that I wanted to share today in terms of how to meet career goals in this market, and would definitely love to open it up for questions that are more specific to this topic. So, Rachel.
Thank you, Melissa. I always appreciate hearing about all the cool mentorship and things that you provide. So we have several questions that were submitted beforehand, which I will read through today. In addition, you are more than welcome to send a question through the chat, and those will be sent to me. So I'm just going to go down the line, and whichever one of you presenters wants to chime in and let us know your answer, just pipe up. The first question that we had was, how can you stop yourself from being pigeonholed into the same jobs, like an administrative position? Employers are slow to give you a chance at something different, even if your experience correlates but is different. Do one of you have a thought about how to answer that question?
So I'll
Melissa,
I'll jump in there.
Oh, sorry, Anne, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is really critical there is to say, how do you set yourself apart? How do you make the case that you have a slightly different skill set, whether that's a short skill up course or class or workshop you've attended, or maybe a conference you've attended, where you can really demonstrate an actionable item that says, I have this relation, something that makes that bridge here, something that makes me look different. An actionable item goes a long way.
And I'll, Rachel, do you want me to add to that or move on?
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just think, in regards to that, I think that's a common thing. A lot of employees feel like they're pigeonholed, that, they are set to do one thing and one role for the company. And the reality is, we want to expand. We want to spread our wings. We want to be challenged and have more opportunities. And so, kind of like Anne said, what is it that you can do to set yourself apart? But sometimes I think, it may be a harsh reality that employees get overlooked and employees are underappreciated or undervalued. And when that is the case, maybe it's time to look for new opportunities. I don't know how to say this exactly, but the idea is that, you may be unappreciated in one company and you may be, the world to someone in another company. So it's don't ever sell yourself short, and don't ever, pigeonhole yourself or become complacent.
Rachel, and I'll just add, just picking up from where Anne and Melissa left off there, I just completely agree and concur. And the idea is that we're in an economy of abundance. There are opportunities. And so the thing, if I were, thinking through this just with my loved ones, I'd say, stay positive, your passion matters, feel free to represent yourself to your current employer in a way that says, I have career goals. I have a trajectory that I'm tracking. I have a vision for myself, and let that be well known. And if an employer has opportunities that you're capable of and willing to contribute, and they don't see that, kind of shame on them, and there'll be other opportunities elsewhere. Looks like Ann and Melissa agree.
Yeah, I agree that it's so vitally important to let your desires be known. And a lot of companies try to have, personal improvement plans, and they see where you want to go, and they should be trying to help you get there. So definitely don't keep quiet about it. The next question that I have, I've quit the job that was sucking the life out of me, but I'm not sure where to go from here. What are my next steps while raising my young family? I know that we've touched on a lot of this already, and this could go a number of different ways, but does anyone have any additional insights to add?
I'll just share real quick. I first off, kudos to you, because I think that was a brave step, and a lot of people won't, take that risk of leaving something that they know is comfortable. But at the end of the day, if it is sucking the life out of you and something that you do not enjoy, you do not belong there. So I think, the reality is you're probably going through a lot of emotions right now, but you have a lot to offer. And again, hopefully through this presentation today and your network, you know that it's a big world out there, and you just have to start getting yourself out there. It's not going to be probably a fun process, but it is something that you can surround yourself with people who will help you and who will guide you, and know that you have a lot to offer, and that there's something that you just need to put a plan together. I mean, bottom line, you need a plan. You need to know where to start. You need to start doing research. You need to start with a resume, and just have actionable items that you're accomplishing daily, or time will get away from you, and things can get stressful. So just put a plan together.
Thank you.
And I think
Anne, are you about to say something?
Yes, one thing Melissa mentioned earlier, I think is so critical here, is activating your network. As you are working through, what do I want to do? Where do I want to enter back into the workforce? What type of position am I interested in? Activating your network or expanding your network is another great way, one of those actionable items that you can take to say, who do I know? Where are places available? How do I start to hear about positions that are available? From ways that are maybe less public, right? Maybe I'm not finding it on a job board, but maybe I can activate my network to find out who's hiring and in what other positions. And I think utilizing that network strategy is one piece, one step you can take right away to find out, or to start to think about, how can I get myself back out there and get my name noticeable.
Rachel, I'll just add, I can say from personal experience that what Anne just shared has been really helpful to me in my career as I look back at different, chapters of things that I've done. There's always been sort of a serendipitous kind of nature to it. I'm at a ice cream store and I see someone and I say something and she communicates it to someone else, and an opportunity comes from that. Just on a personal note, I worked a lot with our former governor, Mike Leavitt, and I had a time, it was during the Olympic bid scandal, when the governor's very occupied doing, all these things to help our state emerge from this crisis. And I just ended up filling in for something that he needed. And it was the first time I really caught his eye as someone that could accomplish something that was helpful to him. And again, it came out of nowhere. And so I just think what you have to do is keep believing, get yourself on all the job boards and all the opportunities you can, put yourself out there, be willing to interact with people. And if your experience is anything like mine and what I've observed for others, it pays off.
Thank you so much. This next question is also kind of jumps off from some of the things we've been talking about. The question is, many senior level positions in corporations seem to be filled with a tap on the shoulder, as opposed to the more traditional applicant interview process. So what are your thoughts on how we might be able to get those taps on the shoulder for those roles? I know it almost feels like an inverted or a pyramid, you know, as you get up towards the top, there's smaller applicant pools, and like this question said, it's not a traditional posting with an application. So how do you position yourself to get those sorts of roles as you get up and more senior levels of your company?
I'm happy to jump in there first, and Melissa and Ann, you can jump from it. But one of the observations I make is that the senior positions, they almost always are a mix of very, very useful strengths, right? So you might be an MD, a doctor, plus you're a great communicator. And I'm going from my time in the federal government working at Health and Human Services. The top people at the FDA, the CDC, you know, Medicaid, Medicare, all of these things that our federal government's involved in healthcare, the top people, they're not just a good policy person, but they're also have a lot of emotional intelligence. They also are great communicators. They package these things. So, you know, I think the right way to think about this question is, what can I do to let my strengths, you know, be optimized? And don't just think in a narrow vein, but think in multiple veins of the strengths that you have that you can share with your employer. That's what I think gets you to the top positions, is the ability to do several core competencies well. Ann and Melissa, is that how you see it as well? I'm curious.
I think that's a great piece of advice. One thing that comes to mind as an actionable item to take is to say, what does my most recent evaluation look like? What kind of feedback am I getting from the folks who I would like to do that tapping on the shoulder? And to really engage with that feedback, to take some time to look at it, to read at it, and to see where could I make a step, right? What are the positive outcomes? What are the positive pieces of feedback that I have? How do I continue to keep that shining in my work experience? How do I continue to keep that to the fore? But in the places of feedback where I want to grow as an employee and I've been encouraged to grow, how do I demonstrate that growth? How do I take an approach that shows not only am I capable of giving feedback as a manager, but also of receiving it and growing with it?
Perfect. Melissa, do you have anything to add to that one, or should we go to the next question?
I could always add, Rachel, but for the sake of time, we can move on.
Okay. Well, I'm going to not let you off the hook, because the next question I'm going to ask is one that was submitted through our chat feature specifically to you, Melissa. The question was, Melissa, you mentioned networking as an important way to get your foot in the door. For those of us considering a career change or pivot, where should we look for networking opportunities outside of our web that we've already been involved in?
Ooh, that's a great question. You know, I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. I just, you know, I think it's such a robust tool that allows you to connect, you know, semi-informally, but it's really putting a face to a name and a kind of a non-obtrusive introduction just to get to know someone. And then where that could lead from there, you know, because if you're trying to get noticed in a company or get insight into a company with someone who currently works there, it's just so nice to get that inside perspective and to be able to connect with someone on LinkedIn. And just, again, it's very socially acceptable to send a request and say, hey, I'm interested in learning more about your organization. I would love to just, you know, schedule some time where maybe we could get on a Zoom call or go to coffee or lunch, and I can, you know, learn more about what you do, or you know, or what your organization is all about. And I think, again, very socially acceptable, something that you can do from home. You can do your research, you can connect with, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of people that way, in a quick fashion. So I'd say that's one tip that I have.
I know that was directed to Melissa, but Natalie or Ann, do you have anything to add on how to network outside of your web? Okay, well, I would add, just from the perspective of our Utah alumni organization, we are just about to be launching our new Forever Utah Alumni Network. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity for me to give a little plug for that. keep an eye open for that through your communications with the university. But what that's going to be is essentially like a LinkedIn type software for all university alumni. And if you go in there to make an account, anyone who has ever graduated from the U already has a profile on there, and you can go on there and claim your profile, so to speak, and add your photo and add any additional information. But it's a great way for people to go in and search for fellow alumni in certain fields or with certain college degrees that might be interesting to you. Once people have claimed their account and added a little bit more information on it, they're able to put in there an indication if they'd be willing to do any sort of mentorship or informational interviews. Some people really are eager to put themselves out there and help fellow alumni. So that's another interesting way to network, similar to the LinkedIn type of thing. But this would be focused on Utah alumni, but also it has that neat feature where certain people will indicate that they are, open and willing to talk to people that are interested in learning more. I see a little comment here. Our September 29th career event will announce the network and go into that more and how to register for that. So keep an ear and eye open for that. The other thing that I would just add, I know I'm not one of the panelists, but just something I thought of when talking about how to network outside of your web. I've thought about that a lot myself because as an attorney, I'm a graduate from the College of Law at the U. There are a ton of attorney networks, and sometimes you feel like, oh, it's just all the same people. And doing things like this, I'm a member of the Utah Board of Governors, and I'm able to meet a lot of great people from different organizations. I know there are a lot of like Chamber of Commerce groups that you can be involved in, Rotary Club, those kind of things I think are great because they get you out there in front of people that are not necessarily in your industry. And those are great for networking as well and kind of branching out from what maybe you've been pigeonholed into. So that's my 2 cents.
And I will say, Rachel, there is
yeah.
no replacement to in-person connections.
Right.
LinkedIn is great and it can get you a lot in a little amount of time, but making that instant personal connection at a live event can do wonders.
I think that finding extracurricular things that you are interested in that have, groups are great ways to meet people that in an area that you're interested in, but then incidentally, they will become business network for you as well. So next question. This is another one that was submitted beforehand. When is the best time to make a job change? What are indicators that you should be looking to change jobs? How do you find a job or career that is satisfying? I think that's kind of been the whole topic. So maybe just focus on that first point. When is the best time to make a job change, and what indicators should you be looking for that it is time to change jobs? Who wants to jump in on that one? Melissa?
Easy ones, in terms of indicators are unfulfillment, disengaged. If you just personally, in my opinion, if you don't get up every day and enjoy going to work, it's a problem. I mean, not every day is going to be, a highlight, but, you're going to have your days where you groan and moan. But the reality is, if it's something you dread, don't do it. Just look at other opportunities that, can give you a new spark that, and whether that's even internally within your organization. It doesn't always mean you have to jump companies, but I think, that life's too short. We just can't, live our lives and be in positions where we don't have excitement and we don't feel like we're contributing and we don't feel like we're coming home at the end of the day fulfilled and rewarded.
Thank you.
Melissa, I'll just compliment that by saying that I have a personal life philosophy that I always move towards energy. And, that's a way of saying that it's the same thing what you're saying is when you get up in the morning, if you're not, engaged and enthusiastic, and it doesn't mean you have to always be, but the good days have to be more than the bad days. And so if you don't feel energy in your work life, in your career and things, then start planting the seeds for a change, because that energy is critical to your well-being and your peace of mind.
And one thing to keep in mind there, I really appreciate both what Melissa and Natalie have shared, is that it doesn't have to be a quick all or nothing change. You can continue to you can continue in the position that you're in while doing those networking activities, while expanding your network, while maybe reskilling, while maybe learning about the types of industries you're interested in pivoting to. It can be an approach that that you take a few months or even longer or a shorter amount of time to say, it's today I wake up and I'll apply for this position. Maybe I'm not quite prepared for this position. So what do I need to do to get prepared for this position? That making that pivot, it doesn't have to be immediate. Sometimes when we get to that point where we feel like, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to do this anymore, I wake up and I dread this, we want an immediate change. But giving ourselves permission to take the temperature of the landscape around us and make slow, measured progress is a really wonderful way to pivot in your career.
All very good advice. The next question I have 2 more questions, unless anyone else adds anything in the chat screen. I'll just do these last 2 questions. This person asks, I have applied for over 100 jobs in the last 18 plus months, and I've been told that my resume looks great, but I still get no job offers. What is something I can do to look better to a hiring committee? Does anyone have any advice on what to do if you're spinning your wheels and applying for what seems like a ton of jobs, and how do you know what you should be doing differently?
Well, at first, I can only imagine the frustration that's painful. And, at some point it becomes psychological where you're just like, I just don't even know anymore. But have you met with a mentor? Have you met with potentially a career coach or professional or someone that can give you advice and sit down with you, more than I can offer in a two-minute response or whatever. But it is really analyzing and assessing the entire process. What positions are you applying for? Are you customizing your resume? What it looks like, your resume, in their words, is great, but you're just not getting the offer. But the resume is just one puzzle piece to the whole, the puzzle. So there's a lot of different angles and strategies and things that you can perfect in that process. Unfortunately, I just can't give those all here today. But I would really encourage you sit down and get some advice from a trusted source.
Yeah, I think that actually is the advice, is you need to talk to someone about it instead of continuing to do the same thing and not getting results. It might be worthwhile to speak with a career coach. And that is something that if you need direction on how to find a career coach, check out the Utah Alumni website. We have some resources there that can point you in the right direction. Natalie or Ann, do you have anything to add to that?
And I'll jump in and just say, I do think it's painful, but I also, and I just know that everyone's been there. I remember one of my first job searches, it was, 6 months of frustration. This was right out of college. I worked in Washington, D.C. and knew I needed to come home for family reasons and looked for 9 months, commuting to D.C. for 9 months while I try and make that work, so these transitions are always difficult. But one thing I thought I'd just share, and Melissa and Ann are more expert in this than I am, but there's a natural reluctance to want to practice an interview or to look in the mirror and talk to yourself. I can see Ann nodding, but everybody that, most people that succeed in job interviews have practiced alone in a room in themselves, finding themselves more comfortable to talk about yourself, to share some principles that guide your life, and just to hear yourself, see yourself, record yourself, whatever it is, starts to give you more confidence, more muscle memory to be able to present yourself and not get hung up on the nerves and different things that happen in an interview. So I just wanted to share with people that don't be afraid to look in the mirror and talk to yourself and rehearse how to do a great interview. And you nodded on that. Is that what you coach people to do?
Absolutely. I believe Melissa said it earlier when she was speaking in her initial presentation. I think I made a note because I liked it so much. She said interviewing is an art form. And I thought that is just a wonderful piece of advice to walk away with today, that how you carry yourself in that interview is sometimes more important than the materials you've sent beforehand and that impression that you make. And having some answers ready. You may not know precisely what questions your interviewer is going to ask you, but at some point we're fairly certain that they will ask us to share a little bit about ourselves and why we applied for that position. You can be ready right out of the gate for that particular, for a question similar to that. And so being comfortable talking about yourself and your interests and what drives you, and that comes with practice. So I think we've had some great advice from Melissa and Natalie, and I would just echo everything they have said.
Okay, one final question of the day. How do you balance life pursuits? What's your best advice for choosing what areas of your life to give the most steady attention to and level of focus? I'm going to throw this at all of you. Who wants to go first?
I'll just go real quick. I have to say, in my response to this is that I heard this recently, that there is no true work-life balance anymore. Everything intermixes, everything intertwines, and companies more and more, I think, are recognizing that we have to understand our employees personally to be able to get the most out of them professionally. And I hope that's a trend that continues, because that's the honest truth. We can only be as good at work as we are at home, and we can never predict what's going to happen and where to put our priorities on what day and in what time. But I think when you can work for an organization that is open to who you are in your whole self, you are going to give your best foot and your best effort in that organization. And so I just, encourage that everyone find that type of opportunity, that you can be you and open and know that life happens, and that a company will understand and respect that to allow you to want to give back that much more to that organization.
Rachel, I'll just add that I think this is a very personal, there's no like recipe to figure this one out. It's very personal. But a model that I've used, and I heard a woman share one time, was, if you're going to let something slip, let it be the homemade jam and housework or yard work, whatever you want to think. But there is no, and this is particularly for working mothers, but there's no way that I don't believe in the superwoman metaphor, right? You have to prioritize. There are trade-offs to everything that you do. And so find the things that are the most important to you, and then feel free to let some things slip. It's okay.
I think I would add to that flexibility for me has always been key. I think when I've thought about what kind of position I'm looking for, how do I ensure that I am pursuing personal and professional goals, which are sometimes in line and sometimes in conflict, that the word that came together to define what I needed was flexibility. So finding what that is for you, finding what it is that you need to put those two things together, knowing that sometimes they'll be in balance and sometimes they'll be in conflict. To echo what Melissa said, if you're unhappy at work, you're going to be unhappy at home. And if you're unhappy at home, you're going to be unhappy at work. So finding that balance, or what that key term is that you need to seek in a position, is really critical. If you need time in the middle of the day to walk the dog, then you need to be prepared in that interview you've practiced for, to find out what the work culture is like in that space.
I agree with everything all of you have said. I think this is a very interesting question. And in particular to what you said, Natalie, I think that it is a very personal decision, and it's not going to look the same for everyone. I know some people who, and we kind of overlook this sometimes, but some people actually just do love working a ton. And I hesitate to use the word workaholic, but that to them is the level that they want to be at, and others are not. And I hope that, like you said, Melissa, times are changing. And I think that we're recognizing that people have different desires and different formulas for what works for them. What came to mind as you were speaking was, I had a recent interaction with a legal client of mine, who had emailed me a question, and I responded. I didn't even think twice about it. I just told the person that, well, I'm taking tomorrow off for my daughter's birthday, and so I can get this to you the next day. And this man responded to me and said, thank you for saying that, because that gives me, it almost feels like that gives me permission to do that kind of thing as well, and realize that it's not an embarrassing thing to say that you're taking time off for family reasons or whatever, you know. And I think he was in this mindset that like, oh, you can't do that, you can't say those things. And I guess I just don't care. I just didn't give it second thought. I was like, yeah, I'm taking tomorrow off for my daughter's birthday. And that's how it is. And so I think just seeing what works for you and not being afraid to advocate for yourself and what level of balance that you want is important. And I know that's easier for some than others, but anyway, hopefully times are changing and we're able to customize a little bit more that way. Well, we don't have any further questions, so I want to, and we're getting up right at the 1 o'clock hour, so perfect timing. I wanted to thank our panel for sharing all of your valuable experiences, and to thank our alumni audience. Again, watch for our follow-up email tomorrow, which will have a link to this recording as well as the materials that we shared. You can share this with friends and colleagues. The recording will be available on the our YouTube channel from here on out, so you can continue watching it or watch it again or share it with people that you think might be interested. You can also visit alumni.utah.edu/career for online support. There's several things that we mentioned today that are available on that website, so please take a look there. And thank you very much. Consider attending our next event in September, where we will be talking more about that Forever Alumni Network I told you about. Thank you all. Have a great day.